walk out to the show and fall at your door. We got that info for you. Touchdown on that plane and buy anything. More than just a podcast for you.
This is the second part of our best of series. I've been brilliant with my question flow today. Who's the best center in NBA basketball right now or ever? Best center.
That's a hard question, just because
that's two questions.
I asked the hard questions here, people.
you're thinking of two different eras of big men, and so with that being said, are you talking about a post up?
Hold on, because my moms won't know. Like some of our listeners don't know what you mean when you say two different eras of big men. So
all right, so there's two eras of basketball, and which there used to be a big man dominant again, where the tallest person got the ball. And he has back to the basket the whole time, and he did a hook shot, did a layup, rebound, put back. Versus now, you got big men trailing the break, shooting threes, dribbling the ball on the perimeter. In our new era of basketball, I would say the best big man is going to probably be either Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic. Reason I say those two is just because they have the ability to shoot, they have the ability to pass, they have the ability to dribble. Back in the day, I would say the most dominant big man would be probably Shaq. Most skilled would probably be Kareem, big man wise.
Donovan, that's 4 options.
That's what I'm saying. You got to pick what you want. And you can't really just give say the best big man, because it depends on what you, as a coach. If I was a coach, I have to choose what type of big man I want and how it best fits my team. If I have a big scorer or I want a dominant player, I'm gonna pick Shaq. If I want somebody that's gonna be able to shoot, be able to pass, and make plays for other people, I'm gonna probably pick Jokic or Embiid. And if I want somebody that's gonna just pass the ball and just let them do their thing, Kareem or Wilt or somebody like that.
Oh, look at y'all. Okay.
I think the use of the word center in today's basketball is kind of a misnomer. I don't,
There's no such thing.
That's the next question. Don't do it. That's the next question. That's the next question.
We're on center right
Stay
now.
with me.
I like the two of them. I like Jokic or Vukovic are my centers in today's basketball out of like 10 big men that all allegedly play center. But those would be the only two guys I see consistently putting their back to the rim and playing a little bit of the old style that Donovan mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah, I say currently Joel Embiid, and if I said just, best big man ever, I would say Shaq, because he was like, I agree with Donovan, one of probably the most dominant player, biggest and most dominant player ever. So Shaq, but currently Joel Embiid, if he just locks in.
All right.
Yeah, and hey, I'm gonna be a parrot and say the same thing. Joel Embiid is the best in the league right now. And then I'm gonna say Shaq is the most dominant of all time. But I don't know. Do you say Davis? Is he a 5?
Don't do it. Don't do it. So I'm going to take us to the next question, because this is where I acknowledge that I like basketball, but the terminology is different. So I use the word center because when I was growing up, you had centers, you had forwards, you had power forwards, you had guards, you had shooting guards. But I've learned there's 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s. So the tweener question is where we get technical on our show. And the goal is to leave our parents with some specific information that they can immediately take and go and work with their kid. So this is where I ask, in today's world, what is a 1? What is a 2? What's a 3? what's a 4, and what's a 5, specific to basketball. And I want you to break it down in skill set, measurables, key differences for each position so that our listeners will know what's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Before we get started, is it okay if I propose an idea?
Absolutely, that's what we do. Absolutely.
Could we break it down like each one of them individually? Like I could take one, Donovan or somebody takes 2, because I mean essentially we would all be saying the same thing, right?
Probably so.
May not
So
be enough time to go all 5 positions, James.
So, okay, that's cool. So who wants to, so someone's going to have to take 2, or you guys can all agree to weigh in on one of them. So who wants to take what's a 1?
I'll take the first 2.
Go ahead, Jordan.
If you want. So the 1 is going to be classified, I guess you could say, back in your day, you called it a point guard. So that would be the point guard, right? So that would be the person who's bringing the ball up the court, the person who's going to be the coach on the floor, if you will. So he's going to lead the team. He's going to always know everybody's position 1 through 5, right? Then you have the 2, going to be your shooting guard, and that's going to be the person who can knock down a 3, who can go get the bucket whenever the team needs it. The person who, in my opinion, has to guard the hardest position on the floor, and somebody who has to be in the best shape and be able to put the team on his back in terms of like the scoring load, if you will. So that's my definition for the 1 and 2.
So are they the same size, height, weight? I mean, are they the same size roughly?
Size, typically the 1 is going to be shorter in stature on the floor, but the way the game is set up nowadays, it could be a 6'11" guy that's the 1 on the floor. So I don't think that there is a size that is exclusive to the position. However, the 1 is typically the shorter 1 on the floor. For the 2, same thing. You have guys like Kevin Durant, LeBron James, playing the 2 at times. So that you can't. There isn't really a size that's exclusive to that position either. Because I mean, there could be shorter guys who play the 2 position, like Lou Will, or who is Lou Williams, who plays for the Clippers. So in terms of size, you can't really say for either one of those 2.
Okay. So who wants to take the 3?
I'll take the 3. So the 3's usually going to be small forward, somebody that's a slasher, basically, somebody that cuts off of everybody else, back doors, get the ball, dribble, typically. But with nowadays, it could be a shooter, it could be an extension of a shooting guard, just a little bit bigger. It's hard to explain. I mean, they could be in the middle of height. They could be about 6'4" to 6'7" in the professional realm, all the way up to 7 foot now with KD and everybody. That person's job is just to be an extension of a shooting guard, slasher, usually guarding, if not the number 1 best player, the number 2 best player on the team or something like that.
I'll do the 5. You gonna do the 4, Kevin?
Sure. So the power forward 4, to translate, generally would be an athletic, bigger person in the old days who would be working with the 5 or the center and doing high post, low post, working if you're in a 2-in situation. It's turned into what they call now more of a stretch forward, oftentimes, where it's somebody who, depending upon the mismatch, if the other team doesn't have an athletic 4, then they'll take them out on the wing where the other team's 4 can't keep up. Or in the event the other team's 4 is smaller, then they'll put that guy on the post. So you need versatility. Today's 4 is a very versatile person, but generally a little taller than the rest of them. And so Kevin Durant can play 4, LeBron can play 4, AD will play 4. in the NBA world. And in the middle school world, my fours like back to Zed are my dogs. So my four is the kid that I'm expecting to just run the court as fast as he can every time, so we can get easy layups. And if I can get a big long kid that can run, then we're in good shape. Um, Not a lot of ball skills typically, but in today's world, like I think the next question or that's what we're talking about is the versatility of all of this. For today can is a pretty versatile player versus they weren't so versatile in the old days. Remember that the good old days, right? 1980s basketball was the four was your enforcer. He was your goon from a hockey term. He was the guy that was going to protect your ones and twos. And Charles Oakley's of the world and those guys, they were out there to be physical and make sure that the other team, didn't get out of hand. But that's kind of moved on. We don't have that situation anymore in basketball.
I would say the five is the anchor. The five is the anchor, the center. Mainly for defense and rebounding. The five is the communicator. The five is the one defensively that's talking to all the players, that's communicating, telling you what's going on the court. And, just like I said, the anchor. Got to go out there and rebound, run the floor, be the dirty work, defend, rebound. Like I said, defend, rebound, give screens. Don't expect to score a lot, unless it's that type of offense. But the five is the center. And you want that to be just the biggest kid inside. So whether that's elementary, middle, high school, pro, the center is always usually the biggest. But we have, and we've seen in the NBA, some centers can be undersized, but they dogs. They go out there and they just compete at the highest level. Montrezl Harrell, who is with the Lakers, that was just with the Clippers, is a center, but he's undersized, but he does everything. Block shots, rebound, run the floor, and he's communicating. You hear him talking the whole time he's on the court. So the five is just the center. And in the sport of basketball, they say to keep that center happy, they call it the centerpiece. You the centerpiece. You the one that's going to make everything kind of go behind the point guard. So
I want to say thank you, because whenever you guys mention a position, you give a real person that our listeners can go and I'm a big fan of saying, I learned this from a friend, success leaves clues. So when you guys give a name, that's something I can tell my moms, hey, go look at this particular person's film, and this will give you an idea of what this particular position does. So I want to say a huge thank you, because I'm feeling like when we do this for football, we got to step our game up, because I don't know if we give specific names every time we talk about a position, but you guys are really, really making it easy for our listeners to go out and find examples of exactly what you're talking about. And since we're talking about ones, twos, threes, fours, and fives, I'm hearing that there's like lots of fluidity. It's not like you're stuck with one position. So this is where I'm going to ask. I was I was reading actually something about Kevin Durant, acknowledging that he's a 4 or 5 or whatever. So, and there was a conversation in the social space about positionless basketball. And so this is where I want to ask you guys, as my basketball experts, what do people mean when they talk about positionless basketball?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I will just go ahead and say the 1 through the 5 is basically the elementary terms of learning how to play basketball. As of now, 1 through 5 can be any player of where you position in the offense. Usually back then, the 1 through 5 was who you matched up with. You match up with the other 5, you match up with the other 4, you match up with the other 3, you match up with the other 2. But now the Warriors have created an era where you don't have to have a position to play basketball, where Draymond Green's playing the 5, and he's 6'6", and he's the same size as Sean Livingston, who's 6'7", is playing point guard. And so it really is just how you fit into the offense now. what you were saying, KD playing the 4 or the 5 and to be positionless basketball, you don't have to be a certain fit or a certain stature to play a certain position. Just where you fit in the offense, depending on how they play the offense. Not sure what Steve Nash is going to do with them at the 4 or 5, but he might have it set up where they play a 5-out motion in which all 5 players on the perimeter, in which nobody's playing in the inside no more. And so with that being said, KD can score from the outside, he can score from the inside, off of screens, cuts. Positionless list means just that everybody has the ability to score, shoot, rebound, pass. There's no actual person just putting their back to the basket. There's no person just sitting in the paint. There's not 3 people on the outside. Everybody's doing the same thing that the point guard does or the shooting guard does or the small forward does. That's what they mean when they say positionless. I mean, that's more the advanced when you get to college level and up to the professional level when you start to not even worry about what side, how tall you are, how big you are, what number you're playing. It's just about where you fit inside the offense.
It's kind of like, to me, it's like it's positionless basketball. How I can make it sound simple. It's kind of like playing spades and having a spade and be able to cut everybody.
Okay, that's
exactly.
a good one.
Exactly. So when I don't have no more hearts in my hand and I'm waiting for you to play a heart, that's what positionless basketball is. Being able to cut you, being able to do everything, being able to cut across the board. That's what like he said, Donovan laid it right out. Is being able to have some trump cards, be able to for my center, for my power forward, for everybody to be able to shoot, or for everybody to be able to do something better than you. So for me, having all spades in my hand is basically the way I can put it.
But let me just say this before Jordan and Kevin jump in. If that's the analogy you're going with, then you really do, what I'm hearing is that you really do have to be mindful of the other people that are on your actual court with you, because if you got the spades, you want to make sure that you don't cut your partner. So that's a very good analogy. Look, I understand that when I feel like, yes. I just had to point that out. So Jordan and Kevin, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I would even go out on a limb and saying positionless basketball would be youth sports, just for the simple fact that you never know what these kids can turn out into. So you should positionless up, I guess you could say. So if you feel like they're a bit bigger than all of the rest of the kids, still try to have them handle the ball and shoot jump shots, because you don't want to limit their progression in any way. I wouldn't necessarily encourage anyone who's a smaller child to practice back to the basket moves or anything of that nature, but definitely I would say positionless basketball is having the ability and the versatility to do everything out on the court. So
that's good. Kevin?
It's a style of teaching versatility, and so that everybody can do everything. And we teach our point guards how to post. Why? Because every now and then they play against a small, skinny kid, and that's the best matchup. So it's just being able that everybody can do everybody's job. There's never a time when you don't know what the other person's supposed to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lets you at least give you a framework as to who's doing what, so everybody knows their role if they're in that spot. But it's still I like to teach very much positionless, like Jordan was saying, because our little guys might grow, so they need to learn how to post somebody and box out, and our big guys may not grow, so they may need to learn how to dribble and handle the ball. So that's how it starts in our program too. It's nice. I like it. It's much more fun basketball when everybody's fluid and versatile.
So y'all know how I roll. I periodically stop us and talk to the parents. So parents, if you are listening, especially my moms, little Johnny is 10. He's not a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5. He's versatile. He can be anybody. And little Sally is only in the 11th grade. She might grow, she might not. So you definitely want to, you heard it from 4 different voices that are all doing something in the basketball space. We called it cross training. I don't know if they still call it that now, but cross training is a real thing. And so I hope that when you're hearing this discussion, that you, as parents, you can lay aside what you think you want for your children and what you think your child should be. And then you can just back up and say, I have zero idea, so we're going to learn everything. Acknowledging that kids might be better at certain things than others. Like, it just happens. Some people are better 3-point shooters than others. So there may be instances where they're better at a specific skill set than another child, but that doesn't mean that they don't try to start cultivating other skill sets outside of their own. So this was really, really good discussion. I've learned a lot. So last question. If I'm a parent on a budget and I'm concerned for my child's safety in our existing world, how do I determine which tournaments my child should play in? And I'm being presumptuous here because I don't even know that in the basketball world, parents even get the option of saying, my kid's going to play here or they're not going to play here. I don't know if that's how it works. So you may have to educate me on whether or not parents even get the option to say, okay, we're not going to play in certain tournaments. But in this world, we know that some people feel safe traveling, some people do not. Some people have family members that have pre-existing conditions and they're erring on the side of caution out of family. So if I am a parent and I'm on a budget and I want to be thinking about how to make things safe for my children, but I want to maximize their exposure, how do I determine which tournaments we should be a part of?
It just depends on the levels. It depends on the levels and what they're
High school.
participating in.
Let's
High
just say
school. Okay, so let's speak in current tense. So like during COVID right now, like I have events at times. I have like showcase events. Have a lot of COVID guidelines, and I have that I send the parents the policy and everything, and let them know everything that's taking place to make sure their kid is safe. So on the safety thing, I mean, you just want to check the tournaments or the showcases. You want to check their policies and how they're going to run their tournaments. Are you going to have just everybody in the gym? Or is it going to be social distancing? Are the staff required to, wear gloves and masks? Is it all the participants when they're off the court? It's just different things. So I think you have to look into the policies of the actual event. And then on a budget, I mean, it depends on the money. Like I said, on high school, I'm saying in regards to what I'm doing, like showcases, individual showcases, where guys collectively and collaboratively come together and they're playing and they're getting exposure, through the highlights and mixtapes that we're putting together and the weekly recaps. But you know what you're getting for your money. So if I'm charging $75 for 4 weeks where they come in and they're on this team and they get, they know what they're getting. They're getting exposure. They come in, they have jerseys that they can keep or T-shirts they can keep, and they're getting exposure and things that they can kind of, send off and your platform. So if it's like we got, 10, 20,000 followers on here, it's the platform you're giving them for the exposure. So it just depends. It's kind of a real, like a slippery slope in regards to what they're paying for, but also policy and procedure to make sure that your kid is actually safe if they're going to participate.
What do you mean by platform?
Let's say if you at a Ballers Life, or you're at a Slam event, or you're at a Midwest Ballers event, platform is, okay, YouTube, we got 10 million views over 10 years. We've been featured on all these different things. So when we put stuff up on your kid, it get viewed from all over the country. So like, okay, let's say in Milwaukee, we got Giannis. So Giannis has little brothers that I'm connected with. So I put some things up on Giannis brothers. I put some highlights up. They get millions of views because it's in Milwaukee and it's in Greece and all over the world because it's an Adacumbo, so it's the brand. So from there, kids, they want to be featured on that. So the platform is what you got, your website or your YouTube or your Instagram, where they could be featured. So it's the same thing. Like, oh, James Etta has this platform that a lot of parents come to. That's what you're selling. So that's the platform.
Got it. Got it. Makes sense. Learned something new. So my bad. Thanks for clarifying. So, Nick, who else wants to jump in?
I would just remind that safety really is about spending close contact with people. And if you're not in their space for an extended period of time, you're pretty safe. And so,
Okay.
casual encounters, all this, is really, just you can, and then, again, having people around you that are responsible, that know that if they don't feel good, they stay at home, and that they value that over whatever the event or the team or the tournament, whatever that is, that, stay home if you're sick, and keep your distance when you're not playing, or when you're, in basketball. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of games have been played. A lot of guys have done well. There's not a lot of people, being hospitalized. I understand, like, you're worried about your parents at home or your family members that you're bringing it back to. And I don't know how you get around that. But from your child safety standpoint, I think it's, during the course of a basketball game, you're not really in someone's space for very long. You're moving and you're not there. So I think that's the key piece of it. And having a coach or an organizer that understands that, just doesn't have them sitting around the table for an hour, in unprotected. And, uh, that's all I can come up with for you on that. James said, I don't know how, having people responsible is the key piece, right? And that they understand what the priorities are.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of, keeping everyone safe, like the health and safety guidelines and so, I'm gonna leave that up to the experts. But in terms of, making sure that the tournaments and things that you attend offer the correct exposure, I would kind of say do your research as to who's putting these events on, and how they've helped others in the past. So like if it's EYBL or AAU, just kind of see who's sponsoring the event. Like if it's like a Boo Williams event, if it's Peach Jam, or if it's the Super 64. I don't know whether or not they still do that out in Las Vegas, but see who's putting it on, and see if there's a machine behind it, and then you can kind of check the credibility from there. Whether or not it's going to offer you the best opportunity to be exposed.
Yeah. I would say that, like Jordan said, check the credibility. Most of these tournaments are things that are being put on for years and years over and over again. So they have names that played in the tournaments, people that's been there if they're big tournaments or ones that people getting exposure. See who's played in it. Usually with the tournaments, they'll post to market themselves who's played in the tournament and what coaches come and what people do and stuff like that. Smaller tournaments, they'll try to probably say they probably have one or two people. The bigger ones, you'll see bigger names, all the D1 recruits that came through and played in it. So I would say just make sure that you're keeping up. And then they'll have platforms like Twitters or Facebook and stuff with the tournaments and stuff like that. See what type of tournament you're playing in, and see who's played in it and who's going to be there, to see if your child is getting that type of exposure that you want them to get.
Very good. So as we wrap up, I want to say I've learned a lot today, but one of the biggest things that I didn't realize, and that I hope our parents take away from the show, is that information is available for if you research it. like look for the tournament, not just the name of the tournament, but who the sponsor is. And then also the fact that people are very vocal about, hey, this particular person played in our tournament, so you can have an idea of the talent that's playing in the tournament, so that you can look to say, okay, does my child have a similar skill set? And even understanding people who have played in tournaments who've gone on to play in college or to play in the NBA. So I hope that parents who listen to the show, because one of the biggest questions parents ask is, how do I know what my kid's skill set is, and how do I know what he or she should be doing or whether they should be playing? Lots of information available in the basketball space. Lots of very specific names that we were given today that you can go out and see. Does your child even have the same build? Now, moms, take this with a grain of salt. Little Johnny is 10. He is not a Giannis. Okay, I'm at this moment, I'm speaking to like I'm speaking more to my high school and college moms. And even high school moms, I'm side-eyeing you guys a little bit. But some of you guys have grown men that develop genetically better than others. But I'm saying all this to say, be mindful that the information is available. Do your research. Don't leave your child's future in the hands of someone else entirely. Do your part. So I want to thank you guys for another edition of the Tim for YouTube show. We will be back next week. Have a fabulous day, gentlemen, and thank you for coming.